Hey, what's up guys? I'm Mark Yoon, and today I'm bringing another hopefully exciting video. So what I got for you today is a little bit of a fun topic that I wanted to discuss. Something that I've seen floating around in certain circles, sometimes being my own community and sometimes others, is about reboots. Now, reboots seem to be an inevitability when it comes to fighting games, especially when you have new rosters wanting to come in and new player bases. So we're going to discuss this a little bit today. And I just want to talk about reboots and if they are good or bad in my opinion. So the first point that I kind of want to make is that reboots kind of offer a fresh start for something that may be feeling a little bit stale or may need a refresher. If you look at Mortal Kombat, for example, we have the first series, the Ultimate Series 1 through 3. And then we ultimately have a reboot. Now, I don't know whether you consider Shaolin Monks part of the 3D era or the original era, but it's a side game, so it doesn't really matter. During the 3D era, they started off with a whole new reboot, and then with Mortal Kombat 9, with their, I guess, next-gen reissue, you could say, they completely started over once again. I remember there's parts of each that I liked, and when I was younger, I used to be annoyed by these constant reboots, like, oh, my character is this person, and now all of a sudden they're being relegated to this. Or, oh, Liu Kang is the greatest, and now all of a sudden Kung Lao is going to be the hero of the story from this point on. But then it made me think, and we have instances where it has been very beneficial. Let's look at Soul Calibur 5, for example. The story seemed to be secondary when it came to that game, and a lot of people weren't very happy. Some people were happy, but others claimed that the story was pretty much rushed and it was cut by 75% and all this stuff. And Soul Calibur 6 really gave it a chance to shine. They really focused hard in Soul Calibur 6 on the narrative. Who are these characters? What are their ambitions? How do they interact with other people? Where are these stories going? Where's the storyline going? Something I feel similar to what they did with Mortal Kombat 9 back when it released. No longer did we just care about, like, who is going to be the ultimate power, right? And who's stopping who. Who's the bad guys, who's the good guys. We care about individuals. I remember when I played Mortal Kombat 9, and I saw Cabal actually becoming Cabal for the first time. I was like, wow, this is a character that I never cared about, ever. But now that, like, I'm seeing him from a starting point as just, like, a regular cop with, like, Striker or whatever, and then getting disfigured and, you know, everything going wrong with him, I actually started to care about Cabal as a character. And that's because of the narrative, not because of his moveset, not because of any other kind of discrepancy against that character or for that character. I just liked him because I was learning more about him. And that's where narrative really helps. Narrative can also really influence the outcome of a story or where things are going. Mortal Kombat 11, for example, you couldn't have it any other way. There's no other way that they could have ended that without continuing into a new reboot, right? So we all know by now that Mortal Kombat 12 is going to be a complete reboot. Fire God Liu Kang has replaced Raiden in a sense in choosing Earth's champion and kind of bringing things back to a beginning to where they should be in his eyes, and Kung Lao is now being effectively the chosen champion as opposed to how he was in the past timeline. And going forward, we have a great mystery of who these characters are going to be in this timeline, how, like, the little tweaks and changes that Liu Kang enacted are actually going to affect everything, where they're going to go from there. You know, is Sub-Zero and Scorpion still going to be enemies, or are they going to be best friends? Are they even going to be, ninja? Are they even going to be part of the, their respective tribes? And we've seen things like this with Melina before, and with a lot of characters getting retconned in certain instances, and it wasn't necessarily a bad thing for those characters. It breathed, I kind of think, fresh life into them. A lot of people do complain that reboots happen way too often. As a comic book fan myself, this tends to be the case, but reboots are used to kind of bring things back to a steady norm or tidy up something that's overly convoluted. Just like what we had with Infinite Crisis in DC Comics, where there was a multiverse with too many things going on, so they decided to bring it back into one universe. And and choose which characters, and they also use that as a kind of plank point to find out which characters are fan favorites, which ones are likely to stay, and which ones need to have their untimely demise, I guess, because of the fact that people don't care about them anymore, or there's just not that much hype built around those characters. Stories are mostly character driven, so the way that I thought Mortal Kombat in this latest trilogy actually did that. Some will argue with me that they didn't like it at all, but I actually enjoyed having like a narrative pace and going through the story and having all these new characters be new to me for the first time, even though I felt so familiar with them playing since the first game. And I really think that reboots do function well in that area. There are some arguments against reboots that should be understood and should be countered from other people. And some people think that reboots take away all of the build-up that you had for a certain game or a certain character. Like, I was really invested in this story, but all of a sudden now they're starting over, and I feel like I'm the one that's being gypped because I just got my character last game. What's going to happen? I just saw the fruition of my character, or they did my character dirty, or like my character got more screen time. There's like any number of arguments for or against that and that aspect of it. But another way that reboots help is that when there's new generations constantly growing up, like I'm no longer in my 20s, we'll say. So the generation that I grew up with playing those original PS2 era games and the ones before, we're all adults now. We're all grown up, right? So, like, a lot of my friends don't play games as much as they do, or maybe they'll pick them up down the road when they're on sale. But, like, their lives and their families and their kids take priority. But the next generation are the ones that are asking for those games for the holidays and asking for those games for their birthdays and saving up to buy those games themselves, or trading in games that they already beat to buy those new games. And a lot of these things cater towards those crowds because they're the ones that are new into the series. They're going to keep the fan base fresh. They are going to have the striving goal of being the best at this game. And this is a perfect jumping on point because now everything's starting over from fresh. So it's also a marketing ploy to see if the new generations will latch on just like the past generations did. And you really can't fault them for trying that. It is laudable to want to reach out to newer generations to have your project live on as long as it can. Otherwise, it can die out. If you ask any like Zoomer, or for those of you who aren't aware of the generational gaps, they're like after millennials. So if you ask any like, let's say younger teen or younger preteen who like what Bloody Roar is, for example, they're not going to know what the hell you're talking about, right? Unless you actually showed them these games, or unless they happen to be like handed down from a sibling or something like that. They're not going to know, what happened before with like all the other fighting games that like we no longer have. They're not going to know what Bushido Blade is. They're not going to know what all those things are. But when you get reboots like with Sam Show or with Soul Calibur 6 or with Mortal Kombat 12, it gives a new generation a chance to love the same things that you loved and brings us more in common with them. It also gets us to see our favorite characters in a new light and maybe take on a different role than they didn't prior, which is neither a good thing nor a bad thing because it could be good or it could be bad. It just depends on the results. But the question laid out, do I think reboots are good? I want to say that they serve the purpose. So I like them for what they do and what they're attempting to do. But I also am in the camp where I do want to see the story keep on going, no matter how screwed up it is. Like Mortal Kombat 11, I don't see it ending any other way than a reboot because the universe was pretty much gone. Same thing would happen with Soul Calibur 5. So I guess these reboots are a necessity of sorts, right? We could have remasters do the same thing, as some people have argued. Well, why don't you do a remaster of a popular version of that game? But that has to do with a lot of rights holdings and things like that. It's a lot easier for companies such as Square Enix, to reboot or really release something like Final Fantasy VII with a fresh coat of paint than it would be for something like Project Soul to, let's say, redo that, make an HD version or a redone version of Soul Calibur 3, for example, especially because like Sony owns most of the rights to that because they financed it, and like that's not even the same Project Soul team, so we don't even know if they have the same data. All that stuff could be lost. But With that being said, I want to get your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. Do you think reboots are a good thing or a bad thing or a little bit of both? Any and all thoughts are always welcome in the comment section down below. And if you want to keep the conversation going in more of a flowing way, you can also join the Discord, which is in the description box down below. Join the channel and subscribe if you like what you're seeing here. And as always, leave a thumbs up. It really helps me to be motivated to keep doing these videos, especially daily. With that being said, we're going to bring this video to a close. And as I want to say, always, I love it. Thank you.
And thank you.